Alcohol snobs of Reddit, what are the most egregious alcohol sins you have witnessed at a party? My very drunk friend mixed Irish cream liqueur and Coca-Cola. The acidity curdled it and the carbonation foamed it, until he had a 2-inch skin of Bailey's cheese at the top of the cup, and he drank it. I saw a girl use some 18-20-year-old Glenlivet, or Glenfiddich, can't remember, scotch for a mixed drink. That girl was my GF. Was at a party at my place, a guy took that big plastic vegetable tray from the fridge, filled it with a bottle of expensive champagne and added a bottle of cheap vodka. P.up started to drink out of that with straws. Da fuck. I mean, I mix vodka, Blue Powerade and Mountain Dew together, and drink it by the 2 liter. That's classy, right? In high school we used to drink Death Juice aka vodka, Monster, Mountain Dew, Rainbow Sherbet, and sour gummy worms mixed together in a punch bowl. It got its name because we spilled some and it attracted fruit flies, all of which died shortly after coming in contact with it. Once saw a friend of a friend looking for mixers in a fridge at a party. He pulled out soy sauce and mixed it with his vodka. I said, "Hey man, that's soy sauce." He looked at me and said haha, yay, then drank it and immediately threw up. Wasn't even drunk. He just didn't hear me correctly and thought he was mixing in some cocktail flavoring. Poor guy. My husband and his old roommates many years ago were drinking and somehow the closest thing to a mixer they could find was Old Bay seasoning. So they were drinking vodka with Old Bay. Miller, milk, raw egg, blend. Dumbass deserve that extended bout of projectile vomiting. Same moron decided to pour out a nearly full bottle of a friend's home brewed mead because he wanted the bottle and the friend could just make more weird wine crap. He's single, ladies. Line starts to the left. The mead wasting is inexcusable. The beer milk egg blend is an ancient drink referred to as a flip or a beer flip. When I bartended in my early 20s and discovered it, it horrified me just as much as it does today. I got two. One was two of my friends drank vermouth because we ran out of alcohol. The second was a chugging contest with $200 scotch only for the kid to throw up 10 minutes later. There was plenty of crappy liquor around, and the guy who owned it was not very happy. There are some sweet vermouths that are pretty good. I've seen more than a few people drink Carpano Antica over ice. Chugging scotch is inexcusable though. Not at a party, but there was a post on our DIY the other day of a guy who redid his kitchen beautifully but installed his wine racks literally on either side of his oven. He justified it by saying he only buys cheap wine, but still at that point you would be better off just buying vinegar and drinking that. I am not an all the time drinker, and I usually just get whatever bottle is under $20 and doesn't taste like industrial degreaser, but I received a bottle of nice whiskey as a gift a while back. I'd occasionally pour a glass and slowly savor it, so a friend I didn't know well was over and asked if he could have some. Of course I said yes. Mother drank most of the bottle. Like, could you not problem drink my nice whiskey? I have cheap liquor if you just wanna numb your soul. I was really drunk in college and tried to make a white Russian by pouring milk in a glass of the cheapest vodka I could find, and was sick everywhere. Dude straight up stole and hid the bottle of vodka I brought. Knew something was up and his roommate let me search his room for the bottle. I found it's in his closet. A friend of mine was at a party and went to mix himself a rum and coke. Being drunk, he mistook a red can of Tecate beer for a coke, so he made himself a rum and Tecate. That crazy son of a bee drank it anyway. That's the opposite of an alcohol sin. Dumping the concoction down the drain would be a sin. Late night decided to play beer pong at 27 years old. A guy goes to the fridge, grabs a Blue Moon and a Goose Island Bourbon Barrel County and mixes them 50/50 in each cup. A friend of mine threw a bottle of Blue Label over his shoulder because another friend joked it was just colored water in it. We handed to him for the honor of opening it as a birthday present we all pitched in to buy. The night was quite awkward after that. Tragic and all, but if the guy's going to throw a glass bottle full of anything over his shoulder after it was given to him as a gift, he probably has some other crap going on. Once saw the guy drink a bottle of triple sec mixed with Sprite because that was the only booze left. That guy was me. Sigh. So many years ago. It was the first college party I had ever been to, and some older guys asked me and my buddies if we wanted to shotgun a beer. All of us had practiced for this exact moment dozens of times at our high school parties, so we head outside and get ready. Everyone cracks their beers and starts drinking. But one of my dumb friends had grabbed a fancy craft beer pounder. He chugged the entire thing and then threw up because of the sheer volume of liquid that had entered his stomach all at once. Shotgunning pounders is dumb. Shotgunning good beer is dumber. But throwing it up in front of everyone was dumbest. Don't waste good beer. Once I was at a high school party and took a swig of vodka out of the bottle. The girl who was throwing the party's mom informed me that if I wanted to drink liquor, I had to do it out of a cup. So I guess I committed a sin. In high school, a friend and I raided my parents' alcohol cabinet and we ended up mixing fine scotch and Red Bull. Now that I am a whiskey-loving adult, I hang my head and cry every time I think about it. I haven't seen anything that bad, but everyone in my college town would keep their bourbon in the freezer and serve it freezing cold. It was the strangest thing. Not alcohol but related. Had a huge tin of those expensive Luxardo cherries for old fashions and Manhattans at party. A woman just calmly took a double rocks glass full and was casually eating them in my living room. A simple jar is $25 plus. God dang, do I love Luxardo cherries. Once watched a documentary on the habits of the Chinese new rich. There was a winner in Shanghai which served extremely expensive imported French wine, at least $1,000 a bottle. The clientele would commonly buy a bottle, pour half a glass and top it up with Coke because they hated the taste of wine. They just wanted to be seen drinking it as a status symbol. Mind blown. China F. Guy took a beautiful, single malt 15-year-old Glenlivet, mixed it with the most amazing smoke and wood of a 16-year-old single malt Lagavulin, and then with Coke. What the frick? I bet it was delicious ahahashes. In high school, a friend's mom was going through a divorce. The new freedom and stress of the whole thing resulted in her going full blue eyeshadow phase. There was a complete lack of rules and the presence of a swimming pool, so naturally it became our hangout spot. Now that the scene is set, one Friday night some crap goes down with the soon-to-be ex-husband and my friend's mom drags out an old chest from storage. This chest is the sort you might inherit from a great-grandparent that brought everything they owned when they immigrated to the States. She tells us to break into the chest and it's ours. It's open in 5 minutes maximum. We find it contains my friend's dad's Scotch collection he has been working on since college. The guy was a doctor and didn't really blow money on toys. I guess this was his thing. The mom takes a bottle and leaves us to the rest. Our first bottle is opened and the 5 or so of us sit down and try to enjoy this crazy expensive scotch. It didn't take long for everyone to admit we hated it. The entire chest was then promptly mixed with Dr. Pepper and consumed over the next couple days. The mom evidently finished her bottle. She came back a couple hours later, changed the music from Sublime to Fleetwood Mac and started to dance around and show us her nipple clips. Still the only time I've seen nipple clips. I was at a friend's wedding where the wedding party were all served some vintage crystal. Can't remember which. The rest of us just got some standard Australian sparkling wine. It was fine but no crystal. Anyway, I was up at the wedding party table chatting to my mate, a groomsman, when his girlfriend came up, said this wine is crap and poured what remained of her glass of $17 a bottle wine into his glass of $400 a bottle crystal. Very rude. Another time, I bought my mate a bottle of Glenfiddich 18. Not the best scotch I know, but it was fancy for us at the time, as a moving in present. A few of us were standing in his kitchen drinking it. He offered his partner a sip to try it. She took a sip, spat it out and poured the rest down the sink. To our amusement, horror. That is an acceptable time to defenestrate someone. Went to pick up 2 of my friends when we were in high school and found them s-faced. They had somehow gotten their hands on a bottle of crappy vodka and were taking shots. The only thing they could find in the house to chase it with was milk. So they were doing vodka shots with a skim milk chaser. It was extra gross when they puked a little later. A White Russian is vodka and milk with a coffee liqueur, so the two ingredients aren't that incompatible, although they missed out on the part of that drink that actually makes it taste good. My parents would occasionally buy a bottle of dry red wine, nothing too expensive, but something that still had some class to it. Being the good son-in-law that he was, my dad would always offer a glass to my grandfather and then try to hold in the groans and mask the pained expression as my grandfather would add liquid sweetener to it. I'm imagining someone who lived through Prohibition when mixed drinks were created because the alcohol was so horrid. My mom recently got over being a white zin lush, so I can relate. Old roommate's friend. Real big load, that guy. He would pride himself on how knowledgeable he was on food and liquor too. Made not one, but 2 whiskey cokes with my bottle of Rendezvous Rye. It was about $80 and I had it stashed for sipping, and I purchased another bottle of whiskey for mixed drinks. I was steamed. The night before my brother's graduation, I ordered an old-fashioned at a hole-in-the-wall bar. They made it with Fireball and Sweet and Low. Fireball and Sweet and Low. Just tell me you don't have whiskey and I'll order something else. Christ. Good God. That goes beyond sin. That should be a crime. With, like, jail time and fines and stuff. A friend's wife once used half a bottle of Hill of Grace to make spag bol. I am glad we were visiting for dinner, otherwise I think there might have been a domestic violence incident. Incidentally, best spag bol I have ever eaten. I'm not that much of a snob, but this was a little too much for me. I was working at a high-end bar in LA, and this Hispanic guy comes in, still dressed in work clothes from some kind of construction work, or something along those lines. He's dirty, and that's fine. I don't mind. Nothing wrong with a hard-working man having a drink after the day is done. Our place was an odd choice of venue, but it's a free country, and technically we didn't have a dress code. But then this guy proceeds to order a Johnny Walker Blue Label and Coke. If you're not familiar, Johnny Blue costs about $200 bottle in the liquor store. At our bar, it was $50 shot. This dude slams 4 of these and leaves without tipping. I almost asked the bartender to use rail scotch instead, because this dude wouldn't have known the difference. But for whatever reason, I didn't. Now, I'm a single malt man, myself, and the Blue Label is a blend, so it's not as sacred as, say, a Balvenie Port would, or a Lagavulin Distiller's Edition. But one does not mix a fine scotch with Coke, unless one is a Philistine. Okay, maybe I am a snob. Not at all. Those spirits have personality, and mixing them with Coke is like taking your celebrity crush to an episode of Ricky Lake. Some dweeb brought a bottle of whiskey and he wanted to just drink it straight. I offered him some Coca-Cola so he could mix it, and he refused. He didn't even want any ice cubes. The madman. My birthday party at my house last year. I had one of my friends take it upon himself to serve a couple other friends a rare bottle of whiskey. It goes for $500 to $800 a bottle. I go down to my bar and ask what they are drinking. Rob's been pouring us whiskey cokes. One of them says. I ask what whiskey they were drinking and he points to a now empty bottle back on my shelf. That one. Those were some pretty pricey whiskey cokes. Common event at parties. Lock up or hide the good stuff when strangers have access to your bar. I've witnessed some horrors, and they all involve good whiskey and whatever soda is in reach. Not the single worst thing I've ever seen drank, but a Monkey 47 gin and coke. Hated this the most purely because it is such an incredibly nice gin. It cost a lot of money. They had it with fucking coke, and I had to make it for them. This was at my work BTW, not at a party. I have a bottle in my cupboard at home and only select people can have it, and not with coke ever. Other one I never understood was when we had 18th birthday parties come in and they'd all just order vodka, blackcurrant and lemonade. Nothing too against that drink, but it was a fairly up-end cocktail bar where that cost £5 instead of the cheaper bar next door where it cost around £2. If you're going to a nice bar, at least buy a nice drink and don't just spend an extra £3 per drink on the name of the bar. Not a party, but somehow my parents and I got into examining a cabinet full of champagne bottles that they had been gifted in better times. Multiple bottles of Dom Perignon, including a limited edition bottle. and you've click what? All in all, about maybe a dozen bottles of decent to very good quality, all stored upright for decades. For those who don't know, given long enough, the cork in champagne or wine bottles will dry out, leak out the carbonation, and spoil the vintage. We had to pour out hundreds of dollars worth of formerly good champagne. Using really nice craft beers for beer pong and flip cup. Those games involve chugging of beer, and chugging IPAs and dark beers is not fun, especially after a while. Chugging a stout can be tremendously satisfying if you're hungry and thirsty. We have fight parties for all the big boxing fights and each bring a nice bottle of bourbon or scotch, but there's one of my buddies who every time mixes them with 7-Up. I love him but I don't respect him. Buy him a snifter as a present and teach him how to use it. I'll wager that any alcohol snob here will not be able to consistently tell the difference between expensive and cheap versions of the same alcohol in a blind taste test. A good friend of mine is a trucker. He used to be a pretty heavy drinker, but because of his job he only drinks a couple of days every month or two. One day when he was back in town he asked me if I wanted to have some Johnny Walker Blue Label with him. Frick yeah, I've never had anything that expensive, and at the time I drank every day. The only thing better than free liquor is free good liquor. So I go over to his place, and he shows me this unopened 5th of Johnny Walker Blue. He takes the bottle and goes in the kitchen to make us a drink. He brings back 2 big plastic cups full of ice, Diet Fago Cola, and 1/3 of the 5th in each cup. I couldn't believe that was how he was gonna drink this. I told him this, but he had a good point. I couldn't argue with. I paid for the freaking booze, and I'll drink it how I want. Beer parasites. That's when you go to your friend's party and bring a really nice bottle of beer because you have a little clique of beer nerd friends you want to share it with, and then some guy thinks he deserves to partake because he brought a 6-pack of Yundling. Mixing any whiskey older than 10 years with anything. Yes, you can have some of my Balvenie 21 or 17. But you mix that with cola, I may bludgeon you in front of both your parents, probably with their consent. Idiots opening a beer, let it get warm and go for another beer. Idiots filling a fridge with expensive red wine because it's so much tastier like this. Idiots pouring half a glass of good vodka and the other half with shitty flavored vodka. I lost a lot of friends over the years. Well, not to burst your bubble too much, but some reds, especially higher quality, are supposed to be served slightly chilled. Not cold, mind you, just slightly chilled. My boss and his wife were both huge whiskey drinkers. For their wedding, they bought an incredibly expensive bottle. The plan was that the cake cutting would also be a bottle opening, where they would toast to their wedding. They were then going to save the bottle and have a single glass per year. On their anniversary, the bottle somehow made its way to the open bar, where the bartender made nothing but whiskey cokes and the like with it. They never even got to taste it. Gonna throw in one story of alcoholic virtue to counteract the many sins. My wife drank very little before we met. I'd introduced her to the world of booze as best I could, but she didn't like any of the whiskeys I gave her. My stock was pretty heavily skewed to Isla, so I wasn't totally surprised. They can be a bit confrontational. The first time I took her home, my dad decided to remedy this. We offered her a nose of everything in the cabinet, and she dutifully perused them. She fixed on one. This is interesting. She picked up it and tried it. Oh, this is really good. Proceeds to sip away at it, chattering excitedly about what she could taste, and then asks for another. That whiskey was Springbank 21, and that was the first and last time I ever got the she's a keeper nod from my dad. £25, $40, a short Courvoisier XO cognac and coke. Not even bottle coke, gun coke. It was the end of the night, so I talked them down to just drinking it neat in a balloon glass, but boy was that a close one. Had a small night thing a few years ago and it was bio, but I obviously provided some decent beers and offered some whiskey to people that didn't want a beer. It was a crappy year and I was celebrating it being over, so I opened my Lagavulin Distillers Edition, and a few people accepted. 30 minutes later I saw one of them with the same glass now full of ice and coke as well. The worst sin I ever committed, at 14, was mixing rum and Capri Sun. stolen out of my parents' pantry. The worst sin I ever witnessed would probably be overpaying for expensive wine when you don't have a palate to appreciate it. There are plenty of low and mid-range wines that are structurally made well and easy to enjoy. No need to blow $400 plus on wine that you have no way to taste the nuances of. Last week, my friend failed to quickly down an Irish car bomb, so the Baileys started to curdle, and in attempt to make it drinkable he poured McEwan's Export, Amber Ale, and Buckfast into it. That did not make it more drinkable. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.